This tutorial series brought to you by Cavootle.com. Now that we've loaded the patch onto the camera, the first thing that we need to do is test and see that the patch actually works. Now before we test and see that the bitrate is correct, we need to make sure that we can actually record onto the card. So before I said the minimum that we're going to use for the Orion patch was the SanDisk 8GB Extreme Pro 45 megabytes a second card. Now this card, when we record, will not span. So what is going to happen, since we're recording at 154 megabits per second, when we record 4 minutes continuously, that's going to make a 4 GB file and it will stop recording, because that is the limitations of the FAT32 file system that's on these cameras. You cannot change the format of the card, but it is going to stop after 4 minutes. The card around that, the absolute best card to get for hacking the camera and using with the camera, is the 64 GB SanDisk Extreme Pro 95 megabytes a second card. And that will get you, well, at worst case, a little over an hour of footage at 1080p, 24 frames per second. So let's go back to testing this. One way right now, obviously it's dark, one way to really push the camera is to bump the ISO way up. What this does is it makes the camera record a bunch of grain. So we're going to try that right now. I hit record and it's recording fine. Usually I'll let this sit for a few minutes, see if it stops. This will stop because I've tested this card after 4 minutes. Another thing that you can test if you don't want to push the codec all the way to the max is to essentially record a blank scene. So in this case, being again night, we can take it and turn the ISO all the way down, which essentially gives us a black screen. And we can record like that as well. The patch that I linked to you in the last video is more of a constant bitrate patch. So with other patches, the bitrate will be more variable between lows and highs. Obviously, you don't need 154 megabits per second to record a completely black scene. The other important thing that you should do every time that you load a patch onto a card is format the card in the camera. What that does is it basically reinitializes the card and gives you a clean slate before you start recording with the new settings that you've loaded into the camera. So we've done that, and the next thing that we're going to do for testing is we're going to put it in the EX mode. Now if you remember, we assigned the top button to be our EX mode. Now for whatever reason, this causes the camera to crash more frequently. When I do this and I start recording, I may only get a few seconds before the camera crashes. The same thing happens in the SH modes, and SH is the 720p modes. It can crash right away. So now it's gone 15, 17 seconds. This actually may work just fine for EX mode. If we go into the future, after we've tested that, the next thing you want to test again is the 720p modes. So we put it in the SH mode and hit record and see what happens. I already know what's going to happen with this card from personal experience. The point of me showing you the crash is what to do when the camera crashes. If I give it enough high detail motion, it should crash. Additionally, Panasonic branded lenses, such as this is my sharpest lens, the 20mm f1.7, should crash more often because these lenses are digitally controlled and they also do sharpening in camera. So those settings aren't available, but every single Panasonic Micro Four Thirds lens communicates with the camera, has its own firmware, and sharpening is added, as well as distortions removed and other features. Sometimes you'll get a message on the screen, this motion image has been canceled. Sometimes it will just stop and then show you a blank live view image like this. If it stops with the image, you can wait 30 seconds to see if it'll clear. If it does not clear, you need to eject the battery. Now, if you're on a tripod, you're going to have to undo the tripod mount, eject the battery quickly, put it back in, load it up. There are two different ways to approach a crashing camera. One, if you don't want to buy a new card, you can actually load a slower patch, and there's lots of different options for patches for slower cards, if that's the case. For this tutorial series, I'm telling you the highest quality possible that you can get out of these cameras. So what I would recommend is the faster card. Additionally, when the camera crashes mid-picture and you eject the battery, the camera is going to lose all the settings that haven't been stored since the last time the camera's been turned off. So when you actually flip the switch, it saves those settings, but if you pop the battery, those settings will be gone. So you'll have to remember to go back and change the settings in the camera to what you had before. So now we've recorded some footage at high bit rate. We're going to go and test the footage on the computer to make sure that that footage is actually at the bit rate that we told it in P-Tool. If you'd like to find out more about our sponsor, Cavootle.com, be sure to check out the links in the description below. When it launches later this year, Cavootle is going to be a global interactive experience. Using a simple interface, you'll be able to see what's trending anywhere in the world. It's going to be fast, simple, and fun. And again, if you're looking to find out more, there's links in the description. One goes to their site and one goes to a video on YouTube showing what Cavootle is and how it works.